you gorgeous, beautiful people, you are in for a treat. We have Jennifer Blom here today. I was joking. Oh, first, you guys know the gig. If you have any questions, please make sure to type in big caps the word question before your question, or I'm going to assume that you're chatting amongst yourselves. It's wonderful to have you all here. Our last call, I've just told Jennifer before commencing this call. Okay, so full disclosure, I basically told Jennifer my entire life story, but it's her fault because
it was a great 10 minutes. Like it was very condensed.
I really did. I covered everything. But the problem is Jennifer used to work IT and tech, and she was one of those people that could answer any question you have. And unfortunately, I realized that I subconsciously figured that out. So I've had Jennifer as my own personal life tech support for like any question I have. Jennifer's got the wise sage answer. And I'm going to have to stop because I'm clocking that she's figuring out that I'm not actually doing what she tells me to do.
I usually tell people, like, I'll give you advice, but like if you ever start a money-making scheme, there's a Gen tax for like helping you through till that like moment, and then like 1% of whatever you do is like in Jen's pocket. And I figure eventually that'll pay off, right? Because like someone's going to make it huge, and then I'll make it huge because they made it huge.
Well, I'm thinking you should charge more than 1%.
I don't know. It depends on how much of your life I fixed. Which, when you like do nothing that I tell you to do, is like 0%. So 1% is already more than I deserve. So I have absolutely nothing prepared for this. So if they have questions, they should ask them, or else I'm just gonna ramble.
Don't prepare. I have questions.
Don't prepare right now while we're ready.
Don't ever prepare.
Right, I should not prepare.
I get the less preparation, the better the call every single time, because at the end of the day, the guests, there aren't any facts that we can really bring up except for fun, helpful hacks.
They're not facts.
That
We're
people,
just in fake news here.
No, but there aren't any facts that people can't find with a good Google search or checking one of the big groups. But what they want to do is, I've found, and I personally love this, is you see people that you admire in the industry and you want to get into their history and get to know who they are. So, because I think that that's the best way to embark upon any career, is to get to know people. Talk joining the Joe calls. Oh, I only have 2 books, or, you know, I'm worried I only have 6 books. Is that enough? You know, that's not the point. Once you become a narrator, you're a narrator. And I want to become a wise, productive, calm person. So who best to model other than Jennifer?
I mean, the people that have met me in real life are probably like, she's not calm. What are you talking about? She's insane. Oh, good. This is recorded. I always forget.
But do you feel calm in you do feel calm in yourself? You strike me as someone that feels that you kind of figured out what you want to be doing at the moment, don't you?
So I think the thing I learned like early in life is not necessarily calm. It's more contentment. Like, I'm content and I strive to be the best I can in anything I do. So over the years, I've learned how to learn and how to acquire new skills. And then that, coupled with just being curious and trying to be the best I can in anything I try, just helps me keep striving for things. That's why I've had a number of careers in my life. That's why I narrate as well as edit, as well as record engineer for people. Like, that is just because I keep saying yes in like the Shonda Rhimes, book fashion, like book of yes, like keep saying yes, right? Like, it's a big thing. I think becoming stagnant means that you put so much pressure on what you're doing currently that you forget to enjoy the ride. And so I try and focus on enjoying the ride and enjoying new experiences, just to like keep moving forward, whatever that means.
Have you always, though?
Yeah. I'm the youngest kid, so 4 years difference between me and the next.
So you were spoiled.
No, actually, my mom was never at home, and we didn't live with a lot of means. So, like, everything that could happen for a the youngest. Didn't really happen for me. None of those, like, you know, in my college years, they like broke it down with like, oh yeah, you're a spoiled brat when you're the youngest, and like they let you get away with anything because they're bored with trying to like teach their children, and the first child has it the worst because every pressure is on them. I'm like, no, not really. My mom just did her best, single parent household, mom working 2 jobs. Like, I think that's what helped me become curious as far as how to learn and how to just find my own solutions. For good or bad, and we're not getting into my psychology. I'm sure I'm very well adapted, everybody. But but I learned how to ask Jeeves. I've learned how to ask Jeeves before Google existed. So I was asking Jeeves a lot of questions. For the younger folk, Ask Jeeves was just
I have a picture of little Jennifer right now. That's the cutest thing.
So,
I've got a picture, Jennifer. That's how you became the life tech support.
Right. It's because when I had a question, instead of like trying to, you know, ask every which way for solutions, I would just be like, hey, Jeeves.
I have it on a good source. Karen Commons says Jennifer can't be old enough to have asked Jeeves. And also, I think it was David wants to know where your ukulele is.
Oh, it's right here. It's just off camera.
For those of you that don't know, Jennifer sang the most beautiful song on earth for the Christmas. We had a Christmas
I believe Judy Garland
show.
sang it better, but I'll take it.
I'm not sure. I think
I'm sure.
It was so. Where does your singing come into this?
I didn't look, but yes, I know who Clippy is, and I'm older than people give me credit for.
Who's Clippy?
The little guy on Microsoft Word. It's like, hey, do you want to save a new project or whatever? It was like, my God, stop being so peppy. It was usually when you were like writing a paper for school and it's like, did you have a question? And always kind of bounce on screen and you're like, no, I'm just trying to type. What is wrong with you? But I loved Clippy. It was my best friend. I'm 38, actually, and I was part of, I don't care that you know my age, it's not like I work on camera where they care about these things, but with asking Jeeves and Clippy or whatever, we couldn't afford, because we were broke, like a new computer, so I learned how to like Frankenstein computer together. What Frankenstein did, I know it's Frankenstein's monster. Okay, everyone, I know books. But anyway, like how to put together their parts into a computer. So it's just asking the computer questions like, how do you install a hard drive and BIOS upgrades and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I learned from that kind of outlook. It's like, I'm sure if you ask the right question, most things are easy to answer.
I think that probably changed your life path. Learning that way gave you a tremendous strength, don't you think?
I think learning that way opened up more possibilities of what I could do with my life. I don't know that it necessarily changed the trajectory. It was just more, hey, I want to learn the ukulele. What do you need to ask, the interwebs about ukulele to get it to work? That's a really lame thing. It's like, look up never mind. But even more complicated stuff, like,
But I do think it changed, because you know how many people now, and it's people that have been raised with a computer. I think that a lot of people now are so used to it that they don't even bother anymore. They don't even bother to look things up because everything's on the internet. They don't even bother to Google. Sometimes people ask questions and it's like, I think it's an advantage to have the practice of having to search for answers yourself.
Right.
And I think that now it's not so much a thing. I don't want to generalize by generations.
I think it is a thing, but it's a thing that we take for granted, right? Because we all know we can Google anything. But I think we sometimes lack the specificity of what a Google search means. So we Google really broadly first, and then we're like, well, that didn't answer my question. The thing that actually when I was in school, like in college years, and I think Karen is still judging me for my age and like trying to like catch me in a lie, and it makes me feel. I don't see the whole thing. I just saw the pop up, and I'm like, Karen, I promise, I
Okay.
asked Eve's questions.
You look really young. That's the thing.
I've said this before, but like, fat don't crack, and I promise I have wrinkles.
If you're gonna have the 20-year-old skin and hair, you can't be going and telling us you're 38.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm young. I'm so young. I just graduated high school. Thanks, everybody. I think my voice dropped too much for that to be true. Oh, stop up here.
I want to stop you because I'm conscious that not everyone on this call will have seen the first call, and I don't want to rehash.
I barely
everything.
remember it, so don't.
But I want to give people just a quick kind of thumbnail timeline of what brought you from there to here. So just like grew up, worked in IT, got hit by a car, life changing, became a narrator, and all the theater.
I like how we just glossed over like 32 years of my life. Got hit by a car. It's like that's all that mattered. I was born and I got hit by a car.
Yeah, the Pinterest highlights.
Pinterest highlights. Well, I was born.
Yeah.
That happened. I'm here now. I lived a lot of different places growing up, which I think also informs, learning stuff and learning how to interact with people, because you just get to meet new people constantly. I lived in Austria for 6 years. I lived a bunch of other places, but that's where I went to like my main schooling, and then I came to the States and went to high school in Salt Lake and college in Phoenix. And then I moved to New York 5 years ago. I was working for a finance startup. Did you
move there alone? Did you like backpack, beating down old car, tackle the city by yourself kind of thing? Or what was that like?
Plane. Why would I backpack across the country? What? It was a plane.
Amazon Prime, where they moved to New York.
Yeah, I shipped myself to the new city. It was great. I couldn't breathe, but it's fine.
But was it though? Was it like the dream of moving? I've always wanted to do it. That's why I'm asking. Was it?
I moved to New York originally because that's where all my vacations took place. I am a stage performer as well, so. I like being a small fish in a big pond. My high school teacher asked me this one time. She's like, would you rather be a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond? And the answer stayed the same. I would rather have the creme de la creme around me learning from the best than being the quote-unquote best in the community that I'm in, because then you don't really strive to keep improving. You just stay stagnant because you're still quote-unquote the best. It's the same... I think to tie into audiobooks or any other creative field, it's the same thing there, right? If you've done 100 books and no one's ever given you feedback and you're like, well, I guess I can't be doing it wrong, and you never work on self-improvement, you could be putting out decent work, but it could always be better. Like there's always small improvements, small things that we could work on. And I think
that goes to the beginning of the call. That goes to what I said about how we want to get into each other's heads, because that's how we change, because we see people that we strive to be like I strive to be like Jennifer Blom. We see
No, you don't. You never listen to anything I say.
Well, I'd kill for the 20-year-old skin and hair, though, I gotta say.
Okay, all right. I might be blonde, but there's definitely tons of gray in my hair, and I don't want to prove that I have wrinkles. But there is a Zoom.
Don't try to tell it too late. But the thing is, I think that's right there. That's massive, because I've noticed with every Joe call, and it was purely accidental, but with every Joe call, it changed gradually who I was over the course of the year of doing the calls. Because you get into the mindset of the person that you're talking to, and it's like why people read biographies, why we're fascinated by, memoirs. And I don't narrate them, but I mean, I have read and listened to them, but because you can imagine their struggles and how they reacted to it, and how you dealt with things to get you to where you are right now and flourishing and doing what you're 100%. Doing right now.
It was Stephen Sondheim once said that his favorite thing to do is to read biographies and those type of things of people who have made it big in whatever industry they work in, because it doesn't have to be, you don't learn lessons from people that are just doing what you're doing. You learn what makes someone a success or makes someone proud of what they do, no matter what walk of life they're in. And I find that extremely empowering, because sometimes that's why most people I am friends with, even though I'm friends with a lot of people, are passionate about something.
Yeah.
And they're fun to talk to because of their passion. You can learn something no matter what they're passionate about from them, because when you're passionate, and I'm going to say passionate about 18 more times if you're counting at home, this would be great.
It's one of my favorite words. If you can work, if you can work crazy genius in there too, you've got me. But it's our shared humanity. It's our shared humanity. We become better people by getting a tiny bit of the spirit of people that are also becoming better people. They kind of grow, and I've met so many weirdos in this job. But I love that. I love that. There's not one narrator. You don't have a conversation. They might look like the most straight-laced, beige person on earth, and then you're like, oh well.
Are you talking about my color choice? Come on, man. Come on.
No, but I'm talking about the corporate office I used to work for. But then you find out, oh yeah, I used to ride Saddleback naked and do strip shows, and then we jump off cliffs into the water.
We had very different conversations with people.
I'm serious. Every narrator I've met has some weird, quirky sideline or background. Every single one of them.
You know, it's actually true of I would say most people you come into contact with in this life. I think we always assume that they have like this straight, like laced background just because that's easier. Like, oh, that person must be really vanilla because then they're easy to talk to.
No, I disagree. I worked with lawyers. They were vanilla.
Oh, they are very much hiding any color they have, but I guarantee they're not vanilla. This is a really weird conversation. Anyone want to talk audiobooks? It's like, ask questions if you have them.
This is my favorite topic because it's people's
weirdos and like vanilla.
Yes, because I think there's something about you, Jennifer, when you get into the booth or when you get into a room. You were on that first Joe call, and everyone on those Joe calls, the old school calls, you get 15 minutes to say what's going on. And there was just like, Jennifer was dying to say something, and you weren't obviously, you don't interrupt people or anything, but there was just like a spark coming off because you're different. And even if you try to hold it in, it leaks out. And I love that because I think when
I sound like diarrhea. Like it leaks out. Oh Jesus.
No, I think it's I'm fascinated by energy, and I'm listening to I won't say it right now because I'm gonna leave a review later. I'm listening to a book right now that's along the lines of the energy and what we bring into our booth, right? Because I think that that's the magic ingredient. The bits that are leaking out when you're trying not to talk and trying to be calm, but they come out. It's what they say about like the little kids. Oh, they're quite a character. At the time, they didn't mean it as a compliment, right? Those characters grow up and become narrators and tell stories. And I think that, yes, like, I mean, you're an expert. If anybody doesn't know Jennifer is like a shark when it comes to the tech stuff and the sound. And
I'm becoming like a lot of different things in this phone call. What did she become? Diarrhea, and then she was a shark, and then like. Do you think your music informs your ability to hear and to produce and your editing as well? Well, I will say that I think my music education growing up did inform how my brain works. Like it helped that develop. So attention to detail for sure. The ability to play. I always like consider playing your DAW like an instrument because you're following along with the script. You're stopping it like you would with an instrument. Kind of both of those parts of the brain are working at the same time. But I will say that the way my brain works is very different than Like sometimes when I talk through it with people, they're like, that is not the connection I would have made. We all have our unique butterfly of brain action, right? I'm not saying I'm like, but I just think that sometimes people ask me that question. I'm like, I can't tell you exactly why I excel or do well at certain things. It's just, I try it. And I also am very particular. If I make a mistake, I don't like making the same mistake again. So
you learn from it.
I internalize, I grow, I ask questions. I ask an insane amount of questions when I'm first learning something. Even if I probably know the answer, I continue to ask those questions when I'm first learning to make sure I internalize it correctly, as opposed to assuming I know the answer, having made the wrong assumption, as that saying goes. Make an ass out of you and me. But that's how the saying goes.
But if you didn't. I think everyone has the potential for their brain, the wiring of their brain. I don't technically, obviously not working on the actual facts here, but I think that everyone has the potential, and I think that's a lot of what creativity is. They have the potential to learn and to grow, and their mind change all the time. But I think a lot of people don't use it because like they're
and a
afraid.
lot of people, the fear is the biggest thing. I was going to say that because every time I've coached somebody on Reaper or anything like that, it's usually they come in like, oh, well, someone told me I couldn't, or someone, and it might not be just about the tech stuff. It's sometime in their life when they tried to learn something and someone made them question their ability, and all of a sudden they've internalized that as they could never do anything technical, or they could never do anything outside of the norm because they failed that. And I've had this conversation with you before. It's something someone can do. Will you necessarily get to the, and I try to explain this too. It's like, you might not ever get to Grammy Award level of singing, but will you get to the point where you enjoy it, the most, and you're getting fulfillment out of personally? Of course you can.
Yeah, and also you'll follow, if you're following, like you're saying you do with your brain, if you're following and learning and chasing your interests, singing could be a hobby, knitting could be a hobby, but you will eventually land on a thing that you could get obsessed with and become amazing at. You might just not know what it is yet.
Yeah. Every new hobby, every new adventure you take brings you closer to knowing more about you and what you like and don't like in this world. And sometimes there's, even more power in that. There's a lot of power in knowing I love music, right? Like, so what part of music do I love? Do I love the performing? Do I love singing? Or is it just the fact that I can feel the music when I'm singing, the vibrations? Could I get that from an instrument too? What instrument would fascinate me? Which one could I pick up and learn? Do I actually just like the vibration and want to dance it out? I could do that too. There is so much potential in this world, and I think sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves into this small little minutia of what's possible, and we forget to explore and find what we really want to do with ourselves. It's the same reason people say they want to get into audiobooks, and I'm like, well, okay, what other parts of the audiobook life would you enjoy? Is it just narration? Why is it just narration? Is there nothing else in this field that you would like? If that's the case, it might not be the best outlet for your creative side. If you just think like, oh, it'd be easy to get jobs, that's not going to fulfill you creatively. If the answer to that question, though, is I love, playing all the characters, or I love the journey of a full book where I can, just explore and grow as an individual, that's a different answer, and that is a very fulfilling answer for you. But sitting in this booth as much as we do, if we don't have a very fulfilling reason for doing it, our work's going to suffer, and it's going to be just meh. Fine, it's good enough, you got paid for it, but is it giving you creative fulfillment? Maybe not.
And also, didn't we just have a conversation? I don't want to say the specifics of the one I'm on now, but what I've noticed is if you have something happen in your life, like a knock or something goes wrong, I pretty much guarantee the book you're going to get to work on is going to be right at that subject, and you're going to get to immerse yourself in it. It's literally like the universe making us.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing, right? That's the that's the problem with doing audiobooks the way we do it. Sometimes it really hurts.
Yeah.
And it can hurt like you're not feeling particularly attractive today, and all of a sudden you have to like talk like you're the hottest woman in the room and everyone's into you, and you're like, okay, but I'm really not feeling that, but thank you. Oh, there's 4 men that are into me. Thanks, reverse harems, making me feel all desirable, even though I would rather eat a pint of ice cream on my couch. Thank you.
I still don't. Quick aside. Remind me, what is reverse harem again?
It's where so harem is where there's one dude and many women, which is awful. Sorry for the men in the room and watching on YouTube. It usually brings out the worst in like people in the harems, but reverse harem is one woman, many.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not going to go into specifics of what, but just trust me, they're dirty. But I get cast in these a lot, and I enjoy doing them usually because reverse harems usually have an emotional arc too. Harems do not, and usually I'm sure there's some really good. I don't read them very often, so maybe there's more than I'm giving them credit for. But usually I like the emotional journeys of most of the characters I go through, so as long as that's consistent, I don't really care if they shack up more than other books because that's just another emotional outlet. So it's just,
and also we learn like the limit of our morals when we get this job. Like they're not what we thought they were, and also I think you have to. I questioned what my taste in audio, in thrillers and horrors has done to me because we've had construction lately, and the forms of homicide that my mind has come up with are scary.
I love because like you hear like your neighbor make a small noise upstairs. I have an upstairs neighbor, and like you hear a small noise and you're like, this is where they die. And it's like, okay, they walked across the room, maybe you should chill out. And then you're like, yeah,
bloody scenarios. I literally look out the window at that.
For the record, neither of us are going to do anything about it. Whoever's watching this on YouTube, we're fine.
Of course.
We're not going to hurt anyone.
I am not a killer, nor do I play one on TV.
But she does play them on audiobooks. It counts. But yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and I think sometimes we take for granted how healing that can be too. I've had books that I've narrated where I think it was Andy Arndt that said it once, and I might have mentioned this on the previous call too, but that line or that thing in a book that the author specifically wants the reader to really internalize. So I think that's important to kind of keep perspective on, because sometimes those things that are making us uncomfortable are also the most healing for us in the long run, in a way. Unless it's like, non-consent issues or things that will never be okay for you. Like, that's different. I'm not talking about that here. What I'm talking about is those slight things that are just they're not toxic in any way. They're just causing a pain somewhere in you. But if you really kind of lean into that, it can be an interesting kind of therapy, like a self-evaluation of, what is actually hurting about that statement, that moment.
Yeah, and analytical. It's even. Do you not think? I was thinking this. Isn't it even?
I don't
better?
make as many spreadsheets as you do, so like, I don't know.
I actually mapped this.
I'm sure you did.
But I think that in a way it's better because through the audiobook, you are working through the emotions. You have to tap into the emotion. You have to do it justice, but you have to do it keeping the story and the characters in the forefront of your mind and telling your writer's story, not telling your story. So you can't be all blubbery tears and mucus for like the entire death scene and everything. You have to be portraying the death scene. And I love that because to me, I went to a therapist like once in my life and I literally like presented her with a spreadsheet. It did not go well.
You're not counting all the free hours I gave, apparently.
Yes.
Rude. Just kidding.
It did not. Yeah, I'm not good with therapists. I do podcasts, but
I do the vague stuff that like is okay for everyone.
No, but the thing is, when you're at a therapist, you're not focusing on the job with that in the back of your mind. I think that you naturally make connections, and what you said, you figure out what was really bothering you, and you come out the other end without even realizing that you've been having therapy because you've been so worried about giving the author's message across, right? And doing
Yeah.
your job. And I love that because we can hide behind our job, but we can become better people through the books.
Right. And I think also being more aware, we've talked about this last time, but self-care is just as important. If something is hurting, sometimes, sometimes, I don't know why you're getting this, like, I wasn't talking directly at you, but sometimes it is okay to take a step away from the booth. Sometimes pushing through is exactly
Yeah.
the wrong thing. And
Yeah.
I think the more we accept that about ourselves, like the more we know, hey, I need a break, hey, I need a minute, that's okay. Like, you
Yeah.
can do that without
Now I have
feeling,
Johnny Heller's voice in my head. If you're not feeling it, get out of the booth.
yeah. Or like you said the other day, Stephen J. Cohen saying, like, take a long break so that it feels like
Yeah.
a new day. All of these things are just self-care boiled down in different ways.
I
If
never
you're not,
thought of that. Did you? Have you ever thought of that?
what, the take a
Taking,
break?
yeah, long breaks. Because I tried the
Yeah.
Pomodoro thing and I kept minimizing the break time until I was down to 4.5 minute break
And I
time.
told you would, and I told you that would be bad, but you're like, but I can be more efficient. I'm just going to not do anything that the science says.
Can you
And
remind them of the Pomodoro?
yeah.
Just
So Pomodoro, not something I came up with, just exists in the world. But it usually starts the first timing scheme is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And then you repeat that for 4 times. And on the fourth break, you take a longer break. And then you continue I talked about it a lot last time, but a quick refresher of how it's powerful for you is you find science shows that 52 minutes on, 17 minutes off is usually like the mean, the average of when that will be useful for you. Like if I work 52 minutes straight, I take 17 minutes of a break, my brain will recuperate and I'll be ready to go again. With audiobooks, that might be more, that might be less for you, but it's still something that you can play with for yourself. 25 for me personally is a little too short for narration. Sometimes you just got in the flow and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to take a break. But the thing that I wouldn't cut, are you listening, Daniela? The thing I wouldn't cut are your breaks. You can extend them, but I would never go down below a certain point. Sometimes I like round numbers, so I do 52 minutes of a Pomodoro and 8-minute break because that's a full hour and I can plan my day. But the most important part of this is how much you want to be in booth a day. And then, I want to get roughly 2 finished hours done. I know it takes me like a 2-to-1 ratio. So that means like 4 hours in booth. If you want to get all like mathy about it, you would take that, divide it by like how many minutes you want each Pomodoro to be, and then you'd figure out how many of those you have to do a day. And then it can be any time throughout the day. And certain people hate this because they like scheduling their day to like every single minute. Not pointing at our host or anything, but
a host is staying silent.
yes. But that's useful, right? Because some people like to work a chunk in the morning and a chunk in the afternoon, and maybe like a little small chunk like before bed or what have you. So just find that number for you, that magic number, and then work until you're like, wow, I really need to go on a walk or watch a TV show and not be in the small space. And self-care, 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 self-care. If that means you work a little bit extra one day to make up the 2 Pomodoros you did less of the day before, that's okay. Your body sometimes will have more endurance.
Do it that way around, though. Do it see the way around that Jennifer just said, that if you've done less the day before, maybe you can make up for it the next day. What you don't want to do is overdo the day before so that you crash the next day, which is my system.
Yeah, don't, even if you're feeling good, once you've hit your day, don't try and like, oh, I'm gonna get super ahead. If you're feeling good, be okay with feeling good and getting done what you needed to that day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the next day, if you like then decide, hey, I'm really not feeling good, I'm going to make up 2 tomorrow or 1 like the next 2 days each, that's okay. But don't be hard on yourself. Like, it can be a combo of both. If you need an hour and a half done of audio or 2 hours, if you hit that early, cool. You're done early for the day. It's just like when you punch out from your 9 to 5 or whatever. If you finished all your projects, or even if you didn't, which was my favorite part of a 9 to 5. Oh, it's 5. Bye. It's like, but you didn't finish any work. That sounds like 9 a.m. tomorrow me's problem. Today, I'm outie. I did not talk like this. I don't know why I'm saying it like that now, but still, it's still important. Self-care. A lot of us, me included, I'm now working 3 full-time jobs. I did not learn anything, but I Pomodoro, so it's fine.
But I have a question. Can I?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to derail you again.
It's fine. It's not like you haven't been doing that the last 36 minutes. Why is now?
It's my special talent. So basically, there was a post Don Barnes posted on LinkedIn, and it's so true. I believe
Name
it's so
proper.
much.
I'm kidding.
He posted that the narrators, and I think we all kind of maybe started this way. It's human nature, and you learn quickly not to do it. The one, when they go through they've got their microphones all the way up and they're going through every single sound and like curating every tiny breath and every space but in their heads, they're saying, I'm a perfectionist. I'm working this hard and I'm a perfectionist. Everyone says, don't be a perfectionist in that way. You want to do a good job, but don't be a perfectionist. And it's the same as being a workaholic. And I will be the first to say that I'm a workaholic. But what I've noticed about being a perfectionist and a workaholic, and when I say it, let me just make this very clear because it's a recurring theme on every show call.
Waiting for you to get to your point, but I'll wait.
It's not a good thing. Being a workaholic is not a good thing. I get sick. And it's not a good thing. And being a perfectionist is not a good thing. But I think secretly perfectionists and workaholics are proud of it, and that's why we don't want to change. I think don't you think that that's like partly, you got to run into people like that when you do the Reaper stuff? I think
actually I break them of that habit. The people that come to me, I usually tell them, I show them the easiest way to get something done, because I think sometimes we think differently. So I think efficiency is more important than perfectionism any day of the week. Because perfectionism is really unattainable. Because even if I'm very painstakingly going through anybody's audio, there's still going to be a click or a little noise that I did not remove. And you know what? End user, not going to care. And I say that only because, our ears are so in tune to those issues with the audio, but really they only care about how your performance is. Yeah. So I think the people that are perfectionists and workaholics are, I don't think they're proud of it. I think that is, in my opinion, something they're latching onto because they think it is something that defines them. And I think that's the danger of perfectionism and workaholism. Anytime you say those words and it's something that defines you, that means you will be unable to change when something important to you comes along that you actually want to participate in, because you'll be latching on to your workaholism or your perfectionism and you'll miss out on living.
That's a good point. Or people that say they're introverts, they do that too. Yeah.
And I think when it comes to the perfectionism, the workaholism, etc., I work a lot. I do. But I also really make sure I have time for self-care. So I can work a lot of hours, but still take enough time off for me not to feel completely drained afterwards. I think when I know that I need a break, I take it. When I know I need a self-care day, I take it. And going back to what you said, about making up for it the next day, that's what I do if I need to. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel like crap and I didn't sleep well. And that happens to all of us. And I at least try to do half of what I usually wanted to do that day. So that
you don't beat yourself up?
Definitely not. What is that going to accomplish? Beating yourself up.
It wastes so much time.
It wastes so much time whining about a problem. This is a personal, thing that I have, but people that, and a lot of the issue of what I have with like online forums, the people that whine about stuff constantly. Like, they're always just, woe is me, the sky is falling. They're wasting so much energy in this like state of, I'm not going to try and solve the problem for myself. I'm going to be a victim to the problem. Even though I'm saying it's funny, I'm still internalizing that there's this insurmountable problem that's been placed upon me that I have no control over. If I'm too tired and there's not a deadline, then fine. However, if there is a deadline, I do muscle through, promising myself, just like we did the other way, I'm going to take tomorrow off, though. I'll push myself through today, but I'm going to sleep in tomorrow or whatever I need to do to feel more like me again. Because those small fixes are so much easier to do than if you burned out for months and then you're trying to fix it with like a weekend off. That's going to accomplish zero things.
But what you said about being around people that are pushing you to be, I hide those people that whine. I hope I'm not one of those people, but I hide the other people.
No, you'd be hidden. Just kidding.
But I do. I hide them, so I never see them. I snooze them for 30 days, and then if they whine again, I snooze them again. And
so it depends on the level of connection with people. Sometimes I'll just reach out in their DMs. I'm like, hey, how can I help solve this issue? Like, I'm happy to help. Like, can I support you in any way? That type of thing. If they're close like that, then I usually don't want to turn them off, but I do want to help them. And sometimes teaching somebody to solve their own, because sometimes it's not intentional, right? Like, we fall victim to this like mindset really slowly sometimes. It's like you had a bad day and you whined about it and you started feeling better and you associate that with the fact that you let it out into the open and said something out loud. And I'm not saying don't express yourself, but there's a difference between like, I'm going to send a funny GIF into the world and say like, hey, it's been a crappy day, but I have ice cream and it's going to be fine, versus, you know, everyone's out to get me.
I love that GIF.
But I don't want to be like, oh, there's only happiness and rainbows. I just think that for us to be efficient in our brains, it's better to focus on that positivity and the solution, and it doesn't even have to come from yourself. If you know somebody's really good at something, and I think that's the reason people reach out to me for, you know, IT help or whatever, they're like, okay, she won't talk down to me, she knows the answer, so I'll reach out to her. She won't mansplain, even though I have my own trademark Blom-splaining going on. That's the thing too. I'm not a victim. I'm not innocent of this. But I think I do it in a place where I usually make jokes, so people forgive me of my Blom-splaining nature. But the point is, I digress. But you reach out to the people you know will help you feel better or fix the problem.
I do have a few friends that might have received a few too many messages about, should I get a dog? Should I get a bird? Oh my God, should I get a dog? Should I get a bird over the last month?
Should I get both? Should I get 5? Should I just buy a zoo?
But it's the same as relationships. I remember first being in a relationship, and I learned really
very
quickly.
Like psychological. Does anyone have any other questions?
There is a really good one I'm going to come. I want to say, but
tell me a story first.
Yeah, just to say this is. I learned quickly you don't complain about your husband, boyfriend to your sister, mother, friends, because it might feel good for 2 minutes, but after you've made up with them a half hour later, the mother, sister, friends remember. So, you know what I mean? You could change it.
And you have to like go through and like tell them like, we're okay now. I was just set for a moment,
it won't change.
And we're good.
He will forevermore be the jerk that...
Yeah. That's why, like, I have like 2 people that, like, we talk to each other. Like, if something irritates us, irks us, like a small bit, we just like make jokes about it, and then it's out of our system. And that's the same way I handle most things. Like, if something upsets me, I will rage. I know it's so hard to think that Jen would rage, but I do. It's usually very like, sometimes I belt it out depending if I need to sing it out. But the point is, once it's out of the system, it's out. And I think that's healthier than trying to bottle it up and like pretend it's not there and then start expressing it to public forums where it's like, can't ever take that back.
You have to choose safe places
in your brain, like every time they see your name. Okay, what was the juicy question?
The question. They didn't write question, but I think this is a question.
There's been like 11 comments. I think you can keep up with that heavy workload. I don't know who I'm defending, but whoever I'm defending.
This Pomodoro sounds intriguing, but can you tell how long ago they asked this question? I digressed a bit. But do you think 2 hours is a daily optimum minimum? What about 1 finished hour a day?
Sounds great.
Everyone's is different. You can't, don't compare yourself to anyone else's daily minimum.
Yeah, and I think that's the key point. I think it was another narrator used to like plan out her whole schedule based on having a finished hour a day, and she's like, I never hit it. And it's more because she had like graveyard shifts to record and it just was too much. So she was like, okay, so I'm going to schedule myself as if I only can do half a day, like half an hour a day. And if I finish more, fabulous. I know I won't finish less, so that'll help me schedule correctly. But the thing is with that, and it's the same, you know, those pickup like messages that like get everyone crazy. Like they only had 4 pickups in like 18 hours, and like I
posted one of those and I got like told off royally. I was just really excited, but I wasn't ever thinking, oh, I'm a person that doesn't ever have pickups. It was a one-off. I didn't know it was the thing people would compare.
It's the thing because people compare themselves to other people as opposed to comparing themselves to who they were the last book they did or the last project they did. You are only the thing, because it's an interesting thing because this is a very solitary work we do. So like comparing yourself to somebody else that doesn't have the same interruptions you do, whether that's family, neighbors, whatever it is a disservice, because someone might have like a huge screen that they're reading off of and it's really big and they go really slow and meticulous and never make a mistake, and that's fine. But you might be more sleep deprived. The scroll always is. But that's fine. And as an editor, I will just put this to bed. No one cares. The editor only cares if you clearly like are like cutting off every single breath when you're punching in, or careless mistakes like that. But misreads and those things, we're just trying to get it perfect to the book because that's ultimately what we're getting paid to do. But we don't actually care if we're marking it. It doesn't slow us down that much. And anyone says that it does, maybe needs to resort out their priorities. I just Jess from Common Mode posted a post about this as well. It's like, we don't actually care. Like, sometimes the books are harder and you just have a lot of harder words that we just have to, course correct. That's fine. Sometimes you see the same word just different ways.
Sometimes the writer just has a different way of talking than you do.
There's a million reasons.
Natural.
So never compare yourself, bottom line, to anyone but yourself. If you did the best you could do, that's the best you could do. And it doesn't matter if someone else gets less than you. That does not matter. And it also doesn't matter if you can only do a half an hour finished a day and somebody else does like 4 every day, has the stamina of like 18 racehorses. I don't know how they do it. I consider 2 as like, oh my God, did you take breaks? Because it doesn't sound like you took breaks, but it really just depends on you. So,
and also even comparing to yourself, is a problem though, because I used to be able to do way more than I can do tomorrow. My life is different right now. Yep. I hope to get back to being able to do way more.
Why? Why do you hope? Why do you hope to get back to that? Stop scheduling yourself for who you used to be and schedule yourself now. Look, like there's things that can happen. Like I'm prone to chronic like neck pain, which I edited a book. Like my therapy now is like editing a book that like tells me things I need to work on. I'm like, thank you. I don't have to be a therapist for this. But a lot of it is psychosomatic. And that usually means like if you start getting pain in your body, it's because you are not giving yourself the time you need to, relax and unwind. And you're putting the stresses of the world on you, and really you just need to give yourself a minute. Think about how much better you work. Today is prime example. I slept like crap yesterday. Like I slept like 2 hours. Thankfully, that means I woke up early enough to watch the women's national team lose. But it was still great because I got to support my team. They're going wrong. Anyway, still love them. But the point here is I did not work very well yesterday because of that. I was like, oh my goodness, I struggled the whole day to get, in editing, it's the ratio is a little different, but I struggled the whole day to get 2 hours done. And I was like, okay, but I put in a lot of hours to get those 2 hours done, because it's a lot of like re-listening because you're not paying attention closely. Today, before I had a meeting at 1, I had a coaching earlier, I got 3 hours done. But that's just how days work. There's an average that you get. So sometimes I break it down for me, like what I want to get done in a week. And as long as I stay on track for that, I'm fine. If one day's half an hour, one day's an hour and a half, one day's 15 minutes if we must. But I usually recommend having a minimum. And so if I have like a minimum of like half an hour a day, and yeah, that's right. I was like, did I say that right? I did. And so that means 3 or 4 hours a week is my absolute minimum so I can stay on track. That's fine. I'd prefer to get 7.5 to 10 hours, but I'm okay if I hit at least my minimum for the week, and then I just do more.
It's like a dance with, it sounds like you're listening to, because I noticed like a couple of weeks ago, I did this like hack thing, 2 things. It said forward movement first thing when you wake up. So I would wake up and literally in my pajamas, leave the house, walk around the building without sunglasses on. So I was moving and seeing sunlight, and I felt better. And then sitting on the balcony for 15 minutes before I made dinner and 15 minutes after dinner. And I felt better. I was calmer. I wasn't uptight.
And how long did you keep that up?
I did until the first minute I got stressed. I find that self-care is easy when you don't need it so much. But then when you do get stressed and life hits you, that's when I find self-care goes out the window. That's why.
You know how there's like an emergency self-care, like something you do when you've really hit like quote unquote rock bottom? Lean into that. So like for me, that's like literally vegging on the couch with that pint of ice cream that I really want ice cream now all of a sudden, probably because I mentioned it 18 times.
Ice cream keeps coming up. Like, it's a theme.
I have a peach, thankfully, in the freezer, or else this girl is never going to get skinny, but it's fine.
So binging on Netflix,
yeah,
and ice cream.
But like really enjoying that, whatever that thing is. Like if you're gonna say tonight I'm just gonna self-care because it's my emergency time or whatever, then everything else stops. You stop checking your email till the morning, you turn off your computer, you let your brain have the break it craves, because that's what it's craving. What I see a lot of people do, especially my friends that I'm trying to talk through stuff with, is they will say they're self-care.
You don't just do it for me, Jennifer. You've got other people you help as well.
Y'all are my 4th full-time job. I don't really know how I
feel about that.
I didn't know we were exclusive like that, but I am there when people need me, whether it's you or other people. I'm there, but please don't inundate. Find a friend. I'm not the only nice person in the world. I'm not even sure I'm that nice. But anyway,
we should be careful though, because this is going to be on YouTube for like 60 years. You could start with quite a clientele.
My hourly rate is $75. So it's
full-time life coach without getting paid for it.
I know. I'm like, I will charge for YouTube clients the low rate of. Just kidding. But the support system's important. But what I was getting to is like friends that do reach out, those type of things. I'm like, okay, but were you checking your email constantly while you were sitting on the couch? Were you checking your schedule to make sure you weren't falling behind? Were you doing X, Y, and Z? The things that we think we have to do. But like going back to like the 4-hour work week or those type of things that we've hit on before, it's like, you don't have to. Like if someone gets an email, if you personally got an email that you sent like 6 p.m. the night before, and you get a response at 11 a.m. the next day, most people are going to be like, okay, cool, thanks for replying, blah, blah, blah. No one's going to care if you responded at 8 p.m. that evening because you felt the desire to. The next day is fine.
And you look kind of sad. I can tell you, because I respond immediately, and they know it's 3 a.m. my time, and I'm responding, and they're kind of like, are you awake? You look kind of sad, like you've got no life. that you're like,
I don't think it's that, but you have to find the priorities for yourself. And sometimes we put this weird, there was the thread, I forget in what forum, but they were talking about the work week in Europe versus the work week here. And how like in Europe, it's like on average, like this may have changed over, but like 32 hours a week. Like some jobs only require like 4 days. Like it just depends, right? But it's less. It's the expectation is once you're out of the office for the day, they will talk to you tomorrow. It's less like, oh, we're going to follow you everywhere you go. I know I'm on your phone. I know you're going to reply. Like that's a weird pressure that the United States, like we have put on ourselves. And like most people, if you followed that other, like, oh, I'm not going to respond until I'm back in the office the next day, they'll be fine with it too. You set the expectations for them just as much as for yourself. You do not need to reply. If you happen to be up and you want to reply, then schedule that reply to send, because you can do this in Gmail, but you can schedule it to send the next day during business hours so it teaches them not to expect a reply immediately. If you want to get it off your list so you don't have to worry about it tomorrow, do it. Send that email and be like, hey, you know, thanks for getting back to me last night, blah, 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 blah. And then have it send during business hours tomorrow.
I wish you could do that in Messenger because they can see that you saw it immediately. And then like,
hey, stop looking at it.
I know, that's the only thing.
So that's another thing. If you are checking your Messenger that much, you're forgetting to actually live a life. And I think we're all victim to this a little bit. Like, if we're that in tune, like when I first became part of the audiobook community, I was everywhere. I was in every forum all the time, giving answers, like feeding off of the knowledge that was there. Then I was like, wow, that is like my 7th full-time job. I'm just counting up. But it was a lot of like people taking my help, but not really giving back to the community so much. And I found for me that was a waste of time. Okay, bye, Dave. Have a good day.
Dave.
Hope your other Zoom is just as fun and you get ice cream later. I don't know. Now that I've said it enough times. But I think that's something as well to be aware of. How much time are we giving away where it's to people that don't deserve... Yes, airplane mode is the best. Karen's really smart. When is she coming back on the show?
Karen's actually going to be on the show soon too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to learn about airplane mode because I don't really understand it.
It just basically turns off your internet connections.
But then how do you get your messages?
You don't until you turn it on. That's the point. So it's everyone like I only see 2 faces, like the cameras are on, but both are like, but what if something important comes through? And I pause it. When was the last time you got something life or death through Messenger? Most people that are going to send you life and death things can text you or call, like, or whatever. But I think it's so silly when people get this hung up about it. Like, I stopped using it as much because I'm too busy to be on there constantly. So I've actually limited it to like 15 in the morning, 15 at night. And like, if I miss something, sorry. Like, if you want me to know about your like baby being born or whatever, then you should probably text me eventually. Like, I don't understand how this became a thing where you're not real friends with me if you don't know these things about my life. I'm like, you have my number and you're expecting me with Facebook weird algorithms to like see.
I'm a Gemini. My friends know that like literally I don't have a clue. I'll like 3 years later say, oh my God, you're getting married?
Like, we just celebrated our 3rd.
Yeah.
This is awkward for all of us.
I don't want to, I need some, because I'm afraid that you're using them all up. We need some final words of wisdom for the YouTube video for people in the next 60 years. You've given us all your wisdom. Do you have any left?
It's like, nope, that was it. That's all she wrote. Got nothing left. The important part is for anybody to sum up what I've said already, because I don't want to start a new topic. It's just remembering that self-care is important, and it doesn't really matter what works or what somebody else's bar is. It matters what your own bar is for yourself. There are things we can do every day to start a domino effect of what, we are tomorrow. And it doesn't matter where you're starting from. It doesn't matter what your goals are. That rings true for everyone. If my advice of Pomodoro and all that crap doesn't make sense to you and you hate it, then don't use it. It is just something that you can have in your arsenal. I sometimes rely on it when I'm just struggling for the day and I can't find my focus. It helps me kind of get in the zone sometimes, just because I can at least do it for 25 minutes. It's that Kimmy Schmidt thing, like, I can do this for 10 seconds.
I love that. That was pure genius.
Right.
I love that.
You could do anything, like, for that small amount of time because there's an end to it, right? Like, I'm going to do it. Sometimes it's like, I'll do it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. If I'm not feeling it, I'm going to take a break and I'll try it again for 10 minutes. And then when that becomes easy, you can extend it, whatever it is. But get to know yourself, and sometimes that does mean turning off social to do it. And I've taken full-on, month fast from social. I've taken a week off. Whatever it means, you take that time off for you because it clears your head. And you're not so reliant on how the other, part of the world is living. You're more reliant on how you're living and what you're doing for yourself. And I think sometimes we get so enraptured by, what other people are doing and how the other half lives. And you're just like, okay, I'm just focused on them. And it's like, but what about me, right? That's who you're supposed to be. Like they say in The Holiday, you're supposed to be the leading lady of your own story, or the leading man. But when you give the power away and your attention away to other people online, you sometimes are living less of your life and more of just being a support character for theirs. So don't do that. Be your own leading lady or leading man. Know yourself. Know what works best for you. But you guys are all stars, whoever watches this. You don't need my advice or my wisdom because you already have it in you. You just need to actually, act on it. Talking to the host again.
Did I tell? Hey! I think I've got it 45% according to my spreadsheet together. And I told you to stop using
spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are the devil.
But that's it. What you said about the living your life. That's what Anthony Mindel always said, and I love that. I still do it, but I love the idea. And someday I'm going to stop. That you shouldn't check your phone first thing in the morning. Check your emails, because you're telling your subconscious that other people's lives are what matters most. They're your first priority. You should do some. That's why those early morning people who I kind of distrust, but the ones that wake up and meditate. The person
who doesn't sleep.
But they wake up and they meditate and they do yoga and they do routines and they write the morning pages. But the point is, that's all for them. That's inner work. I love that. It's good. And I did the 15 minutes without my phone.
Yeah.
Life changing.
And it works. It works. And some people charge their phone in a different room. So they actually have to get out of bed, go to the other room to look at their phone. And you'd be surprised how little motivation you have to do that when it's not right next to you, that you can just reach over and grab it and go.
Yeah, unless you have a backup phone that you keep with you at all times while you're charging your other phone.
You have a backup phone?
Well, yeah. I don't want to miss anything.
That is definitely an hour-long conversation that I'm not gonna girl, don't make me get real on you. Stop it.
Yes.
Anyway, if anyone has any last-minute questions, happy to answer them. But
any last-minute questions, guys? You guys, did I promise you a comfy, cozy, getting ready for back to school call, or what? Did Jennifer deliver?
Wait, this was getting back to school?
Yes. In my mind, this is us calming down, getting ready for our new day, the fall's almost here, pumpkin spice everything, and Jennifer Blom.
Pumpkin spice everything and Jennifer. Not pumpkin spice flavored, for the record, in case anyone was wondering. Yeah, I don't come in pumpkin spice. I don't know what that means, but I don't. Cool. Well, I enjoyed this. I hope y'all had fun. I usually, this is such a weird time because people are usually busy working. Go figure. So I hope lots of people catch it later. And if anyone has questions, you can comment it when this is posted, and I'm happy to answer them. in one of those 2 15-minute slots because I don't live on Facebook like our host does.
Unless you did. You will end up being a life coach eventually if you offer too much.
You have to get like, I don't know, like certified, and I'm like, I don't want to get certified.
Yeah, I think you've got all the experience.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. It's been a pleasure as always. You, Jennifer, are
wait, am I young or old? Like
very young.
I was her age. I was like,
agreed.
Right, I'm an old
20s.
soul.
We
Young,
agreed 20s.
super young. Oh yeah, I just graduated high school. I remember. It's not like I'm ancient, but like at the same time, I'm like, everyone's like, she doesn't know what Ask Jeeves is. I'm like, I do. I promise.
Like, age is so not a thing. Like, I forget.
Thank you all for stopping by.
We love you. Have a wonderful week. Don't do anything we wouldn't do. Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.
Come on, everybody, tap along. First you scrub-a-dub, then you tap and rub. You might have to yell when you hear the bell ring out loud and long. Oh, everybody scrub along.